Well, what do you know? Leo Varadkar revealed his snobbery in the Dáil this week, his absolute contempt for working class people, and his contempt for the idea of public housing. So he wants to do things the right way.
Some private housing for young people who want to buy their first house and own their first house, some affordable housing for people who qualify it, and social housing for those on the housing list. And I think that is the right way to go about this.
Continue on the same path that's seen the developers who crashed the economy like Johnny Ronan return to their millions. The kind of corruption we saw around the Project Eagle sale of NAMA properties. The record numbers of homeless people. The avalanche of evictions that's coming now that the vulture funds have bought up the mortgage loan books of the banks. Yeah, Leo, you're really doing things the right way. And then he talks about segregation.
What the socialists want is something different. They want segregation. They want to divide people up. They want people living in council estates in one area, private estates in the other. They want a wall built between them. They want to divide our society into people into people who live in different areas. Some people who pay for everything and qualify for nothing, and other people who
building walls. The gross inequality Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil before them have created in Irish society. What is that if not a wall? Varadkar and his like have put so many barriers in the way of working class people. You want an education, you have to pay for it. You want treatment in the health service, you can queue forever or you can pay for it. They even tried to make us pay for water. It was only that we kicked up such a fuss that they backed off. Most studies of Irish society show social mobility is a myth. If you're born into a class, you stay in that class. What is that if not a wall? There's a growing wall between vulture fund landlords and their tenants as we're pushed slowly into poverty, ground down by high rents. They make ever-growing masses of record profits. Or what about the tax wall? On one side of it is those of us who pay for everything and get nothing in return. On the other side, the Googles, the Amazons, the Apples and the vulture funds who get away with paying little or no tax. What is that, Leo, if not a wall? Varadkar's intent on building a society where the profits of a tiny elite generate such gross inequality that to get away with it he then has to take out the dog whistle and blame the victims of that system. He's also revealing his snobbery against those of us who are from council estates. Our estates weren't ghettos because of the people living in them, or the buildings, or because we didn't have a social mix. Council estates fell apart in the late 70s because the economy fell off a cliff and people lost their jobs. There was no opportunities, no work and no hope. It's in that context that drugs and crime can take a hold. And if Leo was so worried about social mix, if he's so worried about the uncouth behaviour of poor people, then why isn't he just raise the bar for public housing? Make it so that public housing isn't just for people on welfare, it's for everybody. That way you have nurses and teachers and unemployed people, blue collar and white collar workers living side by side, all in public housing. How do you deal with the fact that some are earning more than others? You have differential rent, where people pay rent back to the state according to their income. It's not rocket science. In order to justify handing land to private developers. Because that's what the idea of social mix is. A justification for giving public land to private developers. Land that belongs to the people of this country, handed over to private interests, lost to us forever. So while Leo talks about social mix and trying to provide housing for everybody, only 394 local authority houses were built in 2017. 394, and there's 10,000 homeless and 100,000 on waiting lists. And the state has more than enough land to build housing on. NAMA alone has land for 65,000 houses. And yet NAMA has only funded 7,000 houses in 4 years. The state has 17% of land nationwide. Enough land for 114,000 houses. The landlord parties have failed this country. They failed the children going to sleep every night in a hub. They failed the people going to sleep in sleeping bags on the boardwalk in Dublin city centre, in Limerick city centre, in Cork city centre. They failed families. They failed the people who are waiting for an eviction notice from the vulture funds. They failed students who can't afford the overpriced student accommodation that's popping up all over working class areas, leading to gentrification. When the government has failed, it's up to the people to replace them. It's up for the people to mobilise to get what we want. We need thousands of people on the streets, outside the door, next Wednesday, October the 3rd. We need so many people at those gates, it scares the bejesus out of the political establishment.